What's going on, everybody? I'm Johnny Brook. Welcome back to another Crafted Magazine video. Today we're going to be doing our first home brewing video. We're going to be showing you the electric brew in a bag system from High Gravity Brewing. They're a homebrew shop out in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I'm going to be brewing a Berliner Weisse with this today and going to be doing my first Kettle sour. If any of you guys aren't familiar with the Milk the Funk Facebook group, if you're interested in sour brewing or using Brettanomyces or anything like that, I would highly recommend checking it out. They're a wealth of knowledge. One nice thing is if you're kind of freaked out about sour brewing, this is a really good way to get into it because there is no bugs touching the cold side of your brewing system. So essentially the only place lactobacillus is going to be introduced is in the kettle, and then it's going to be heated up to a boil after that, so it will be completely killed off and your fermenters and tubing and all that stuff will be totally safe. What I've done is created a starter with some Swanson Lactobacillus plantarum probiotic capsules and made a starter with them, let it run for about 36 hours until the pH dropped to around 3.6. I used a Milwaukee MW102 digital pH meter. You could also use pH strips if you don't want to invest in a pH meter. What I'm going to do here is mash my grain bill, which is 4 pounds of Pilsner malt and 4 pounds of white wheat. I'm going to mash that at 150 for about an hour. I have the water heating up to strike temperature right now. I have about 7.3 gallons of water in here. I'm going to let this come up to strike temperature and we'll be back. Alright guys, so we're up to mash temperature. It took right about an hour to get from 55 degrees up to 155. Really, that's not bad. I have used other electric systems in the past and they take a really long time to heat up the water. So 7.3 gallons in an hour, you know, and that's all hands off. You can go take a shower, do dishes, whatever you need to do, because you know that once it gets to that temperature, it's gonna hold it there. That's what I love about electric brewing. So I'm gonna go ahead and dough in. Really nice thing in case you've never brewed in a bag before, since you are not sparging generally, your mash is super thin, so it's very easy to avoid any dough balls. You can essentially just dump your whole mash bill into your pot and really just kind of give it a good stir, because as you can see, it's very, very thin. Now that we are doughed in, I'm gonna sit it here, I'm gonna drop the temp down to 150, put the lid on, turn on the ball valve first, prime the pump, and then we're good to go. So the cool thing about this system is it has this little spray nozzle that when it recirculates, it sprays the wort over the grain, so that should increase your efficiency a little bit, probably make for a slightly clearer mash. Just makes it better at regulating temperature since the coil, the Blickman boil coil, is in the bottom here. So I'll be back after 60 minutes and we'll check on it. Alright, so our mash is complete. I've lifted out the grain basket. It's dripping out there. I've raised the temp on the controller to 190. Alright, so this is set at 190 for about 10 minutes, so any kind of critters that were in here should be dead. So I'm going to flip the heat off, take the lid off. I got my immersion chiller already in here, but before we go any further, I want to acidify this wort so that the lactobacillus does not break down the proteins that assist in head retention. So I have got some lactic acid from my homebrew store. This is pretty standard stuff, so I imagine you should be able to find it. First, we're going to take a pH reading. Alright, so we've got a wort of about 5.73. So ideally, I need to reduce this almost an entire pH point. I'm going to start with 1 teaspoon of lactic acid and go up from there. So I'm going to add 1 more teaspoon and see what kind of effect that has. So as you can see, 2 teaspoons brought it down to 4.77, which is right in that 4.6 to 4.8 range that we were looking for. So now I'm just going to chill this down to 120 and then I'll be back. Alright, so I got it cooled down. It's about 117 right now. So this is my starter with the Swanson L Plantarum capsules. You can even see I didn't even take them out of the capsules. They're still kind of floating around in there. So I'm going to go ahead and pitch this guy. And Now I will go over to my kegerator. I'm gonna purge this with CO2, put some saran wrap over the top, put the lid on, and set the temperature controller to 9 degrees, and probably just come back tomorrow morning and check it again. So we'll be back tomorrow morning. All right guys, we're back. It's the next morning. It's been about 24 hours since I pitched the lactobacillus. So I'm gonna crack this open and I'm gonna take a little sample with this little guy. So first of all, I'm gonna sanitize it. I don't wanna introduce any other nastiness. So before I take the pH reading, I'm just gonna give this a little taste and see how acidic it is. Wow, that's got a really nice, clean acidity already. Really nice maltiness still. Man, that's delicious. I'm honestly a little bit surprised considering this is my first go at this. I wasn't expecting it to turn out this well. So this is kind of a shocker, but the pH has dropped from 4.8 yesterday to 3.05 in 24 hours. So that is shocking to say the least. I was not expecting it to work this quickly. So luckily I started my starter yesterday. I was anticipating this taking 48 hours, but it's only taken 24. So my starter is ready to go. So at this point, I'm gonna go ahead and bring this up to a boil because I need to stop this from souring any further. 3.03 is pretty dang tart. I'll boil this for 60 minutes. I want to reduce the volume mainly. My pre-boil gravity was about 1027. I want to get that up to about 1035. Alright, so I think this is about as good of a boil as we're going to get here in my probably 45-degree garage. So I've estimated the volume in the kettle to a little over 6.5 gallons. It took about an hour and 15 minutes to get up to a boil, which is not terrible considering how cold it is. Again, that's all hands-off time, so I was off doing other things. Let me just show you the few things I'm going to add to the boil. So first is going to be some of this Fermax yeast nutrient. I'm going to add about 2 tablespoons of this. This fermentation is going to be really tough on the main Saccharomyces that I'm using, the White Labs German ale yeast. Since the pH is so low, that yeast is going to really have a tough time. So anything I can do to kind of help it out, I'm going to do, and adding these yeast nutrients should help. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of Whirlfloc at the 15-minute mark just to kind of clear it up a little bit. This is a mostly, or at least 50% wheat mash bill, so it is definitely going to be cloudy. And then the only hops I'm going to use are these UK Northdown pellets. This is 1 ounce. I'm going to throw these in with 15 minutes left in the boil. They should add a little bit of kind of a pine character and some fruitiness, not a ton of bitterness. I calculated this at about 12 IBUs. You know, that's a little higher actually than to style for Berliner Weisse, but I'm kind of making my own version. We're at the 15-minute mark, so I'm going to go ahead and toss in my hops. 1 Whirlfloc tablet and 2 tablespoons of yeast nutrient. And we'll be back at flame out. I'm also going to go ahead and stick in my immersion chiller to let that get all nice and sterilized. And we'll see you in 15 minutes. We're just chilled down to about 75 degrees. I'm going to go ahead and transfer to the fermenter. I'm going to take a gravity sample and then we'll pitch my yeast starter. Go ahead and let this start running. I'm going to slow this down, try to get as much aeration as possible into this wort. I know that this is going to be a very hard fermentation, so the slower I can have this and the more splashing that occurs in the fermenter, the more oxygen will be introduced into the wort, so that's a very good thing. Let's check our gravity here. It looks like we're at about 1032, which I'm happy with. It's not quite as high as I anticipated, but I'm not sure what my final volume was. We'll see what that is as soon as this is done draining. Alright, so we collected just about 5 gallons into the fermenter. According to the manual of the high gravity electric brew in a bag system, there's about half a gallon of dregs and just liquid remaining in the kettle, so I'm going to call it a 5.5 gallon post boil volume. I'll do the calculations for the efficiency and put them on the screen. Now we're going to pitch the yeast starter, so make sure always use your stir plate magnet so that you don't pitch your magnet as well, or else you won't be having any more starters until this batch is done fermenting. Go ahead and pitch this guy. Sanitize our lid. And I'm just gonna rock this back and forth, get a little oxygen in there. Okay, now I'll put this in my fermentation room, which stays pretty much 65 degrees dead on day and night, and I'm gonna let this run for at least a week. Then I'll dry hop it for probably about 4 days with Azacca hops, keg it, and then I will follow up this video with a tasting video in probably 2 to 3 weeks, so stay tuned for that. Overall, the brew day went great. I'm really excited about the potential for this Berliner Weisse. Hopefully it turns out great. I will have video tasting notes in the future, so stay tuned for that. And if you guys enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you comment, subscribe, like the video. You know, we're just getting into home brewing videos, but I've been an avid home brewer for years. If you're interested in our magazine, Crafted Magazine, check out our app on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. I'll put a link to that in the description below. If you're on mobile or Apple TV and don't feel like looking in the description, just search for Crafted Magazine in either app store. Again, thanks guys for watching. Your support is greatly appreciated, and until next time, happy brewing.